Today I'm going to explain the basics of misrepresentation in contract law. So if you've entered a contract because you relied upon something that you were told, either in writing or in person, that later turned out to be wrong, this is known as a misrepresentation. It means that you've been told something or assured of something that made you enter the contract because you relied on that to be true when you decided to enter the contract and part with money, or indeed anything else. But if that fact later turns out to be false or just plain wrong, then you may be able to rescind that contract, that is, to put yourselves back in the position that you were before you entered the contract, in which case the monies that you paid under the contract would be due back to you if it is possible to come back to that position, and I'll explain why in a moment. So there are several things that need to be proven to establish a claim for breach of contract by way of misrepresentation. First of all, there must be a statement of fact. Now this cannot simply be opinion or sales puff where somebody tells you this is the best car you'll ever own. Things of that nature do not amount to a statement of fact and therefore will not found a claim for misrepresentation. If, however, a car salesman, sticking with the analogy, tells you that the car's only done 15,000 miles, but later it turns out that the mileometer was clocked and in fact the car had done 50 or 150,000 miles instead of the 15,000 that you were assured, then that statement about the car was a statement of fact, but it turned out to be wrong. Then we must look at how the statement was made and to what degree and why the statement became wrong in the first place. Now, first of all, at the low end of the scale, we have innocent misrepresentation. So if you buy a car from a friend who tells you that the car's only done 15,000 miles, then your friend may have looked at the mileometer and just took it as read that the car had only done 15,000 miles. Your friend is most likely not a mechanic and therefore hasn't been able to check or verify that the mileage is in fact accurate. Therefore, your friend would have had no way of knowing whether to believe that the 15,000 miles was accurate. This is known as innocent misrepresentation, and this can amount to a defence to a claim if a person genuinely believes that what they've told you is true. The next step up the ladder, we have negligent misrepresentation. This is where somebody owes a duty to you to check that these things are accurate. For example, sticking with the car analogy, if we move to a dealer now, where you would expect a dealer to check and verify that everything they tell you about the car is accurate. If they tell you that it's got 15,000 miles on the clock, but in fact it's got 50 or 150,000, and they just haven't bothered to check, then that may come under negligent misrepresentation. And then right at the top end, if somebody has deliberately misled you, let's say in the same scenario, the dealer has deliberately changed the mileage, or the dealer knows that the mileage has been changed to falsely represent that it's only done 15,000 miles. If the same dealer then tells you, either orally or in writing, that the car's only done 15,000 miles, you rely on that fact when deciding to buy the vehicle. That becomes fraudulent misrepresentation. And the distinctions are important because the remedies, that is what you can get if you win your claim, the remedies are different, or very slightly different, for each type of misrepresentation. But first of all, coming back, as I said, it is important to know whether or not you can come back to the position before you enter the contract, because the courts can award damages in lieu of, or instead of, rescission of a contract. In other words, if it's just simply not possible to put something back the way it was before, let's say you'd bought the car and actually it had been smashed, written off, or any of the above, then it is not possible for you to give the car back because it's simply not in the same condition it was to begin with. In these scenarios, the courts will award damages in lieu of rescission of the contract. Now, the remedies, or how the court will put things right if you win a claim under misrepresentation, are broadly the same for either fraudulent misrepresentation or negligent misrepresentation. The court can award you tort damages, that is, money for something that's been done wrong, and with these two categories there is no remoteness limit. That means there is no limit on the damages that the court can award depending on how connected your loss is to the misrepresentation. In other words, if you relied on a false statement of fact when entering a contract, and as a result you've had a whole string of different losses that all stem back to that one breach of the law, the court can award you damages for the whole thing. And for these two categories, the court can also order rescission of the contract, again in situations where it is possible to do so. And where it's not, again, as I said, the court will order damages in lieu of rescission. With innocent misrepresentation, there is a slight distinction in that the court will also order rescission of a contract and damages in lieu of rescission, but the court will look a lot more carefully about what losses you've incurred, because ultimately the misrepresentation was less severe in this case if it was made innocently. For example, back to the scenario where your friend has sold you a car, innocently told you that the car only had 15,000 miles on the clock. Your friend was effectively innocent when telling you that, although it did turn out to be wrong, and the courts can still award a claim in that scenario. They will just be less harsh about doing it, therefore they will apply a limit on the remoteness of your losses that are connected with that original misrepresentation. If you are at the receiving end of a claim for misrepresentation, please subscribe to this channel, because I will go through several defences which are available to misrepresentation and various things that you will need to take care of, because a claim for misrepresentation can be quite devastating when it comes to costs and damages against you.